worked hard on this for a long time, and let's give me some appreciation for listening to 500 I'd like to start by thanking a number of people for making this possible. All the people whose generous donations allow us to get the best poets in the country. Mickey, who could beautify any space, and this one's a challenge. Yes, I know half of the ceiling in the girls' bathroom is kind of hanging down.
There's a ghost in there too.
Is there? Okay.
Yes.
Jen, who did these beautiful flower arrangements and leaves a trail of beauty wherever she walks. And let's see, Nick, for donating and setting up the sound system. And Ava and David for bringing the goodies on the back table. And am I forgetting anybody? Kathy, who always mans the bookstore. And it's really great to see a lot of old friends and some new people too. I'm going to start by reading a poem from Rumi. It's only about 800 years old, but it's how I'd like to see this night go. It's called Not Here. There's courage involved if you want to become truth. There is a broken open place in a lover. Where are those qualities of bravery and sharp compassion in this group? What's the use of old and frozen thought? I want a howling hurt. This is not a treasury where gold is stored. This is for copper. We alchemists look for talent that can heat up and change. Lukewarm won't do. That's the line that got me on this poem. Lukewarm won't do. Half-hearted holding back, well enough getting by, not here. That's it. The theme for this year is about poetry being able to make a change in the world. And it's already happened this morning. I'll talk a little more about that in a while. I'd like to just do 3 short little stories and poems. Every year I go to a conference out in the Redwoods in Mendocino. That's where I met Frank. That's where I met my friend Stephen and lots of my really good friends from around the country. I was standing with a man last year talking about poetry and trading poems back and forth, and another guy came up who had done a lot of jail time for a mistake he made when he was 17 years old. And we're in this beautiful redwood forest, and I said, have you walked in the woods yet? And he said, no, I'm afraid to go into the woods. And this is a guy that survived prison, survived his neighborhood growing up, and all kinds of things that would terrify a lot of people. And I said, come on, what's going on? And he said, oh, I don't know. So I said, you know, there's a really good poem about this. I'm going to go back to my cabin and get it so I could read it to you. And the guy I was talking to pulls his wallet out, reaches in and pulls out the poem and hands it to him. And we went for a walk that afternoon and he loved it. But he had to take a selfie like every 5 minutes. Okay. And the poem I wanted to read was this. It's by David Wagoner and it's called Lost. It's written kind of in the tone of ancient Native Americans living in the northern forests, northern West Coast forest. And it's thick. It's not like our forest here where there's room to walk between the trees. It's just walls of green in there. And it was a real issue for children. If they got lost in there, how do you get out? How do you find your way? And sometimes in our lives, we get into a metaphorical place like that. We get lost, and how do we find our way out? And this poem has their answer to it. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. Just about 1 year ago, my dear friend Greg Kimura died. A lot of you know him. He's been a poet here a number of times. And Greg wrote a poem called Cargo, which was a life changer. I use this poem in my teaching. It's the idea that everyone comes into this world with a unique gift, and we have to find what that gift is and give that gift in the world. And I know a lot of you have heard this before. I'm going to read it one more time. There are cargo posters that we made. Heavy made a collage for his book cover that's about this poem, and we give these away to anybody who wants them, especially the schools. We have a website, cargopoem.com, and the young lady who made the website is one of our former Wellspring of Imagination students. She'll be here tomorrow. Liz Heim, who's graduating from college, makes me feel even older than normal. Okay, this is Cargo. Mickey, you want to do this? You did such a good job last year.
No, not without a rehearsal, but thank you.
All right. You enter life a ship laden with meaning, purpose, and gifts, sent to be delivered to a hungry world. And as much as the world needs your cargo, you need to give it away. Everything depends on this. Everything. But the world forgets its needs, and you forget your mission, and the ancestral maps used to guide you have become faded scrawls on the parchment of dead pharaohs. The cargo weighs you heavy the longer it is held, and spoilage becomes a risk. Your ship sputters from port to port, and at each you ask, is this the way? But the way cannot be found without knowing the cargo, and the cargo cannot be known without recognizing there is a way, and it is simply this. You have gifts. The world needs your gifts. You must deliver them. The world may not know it is starving, but the hungry know, and they will find you when you discover your cargo and start to give it away.
Real classic.
That's a good one. That's good. Here's an email I got, I don't know, about 6 months ago. Just total surprise to get this. The poem Cargo literally came to me in a bottle out of the sea. I am a 70-year-old woman. I never cease to be amazed by synchronicity and serendipity. I own a house by the sea on South Pender Island, British Columbia, though I am American and reside most of the year in Seattle. My family has been coming to the Penders for 30 years. The poem floated by about a year ago, and my 36-year-old daughter fished it up. Our intent has been to put it back out to sea for someone else to find and be touched by Mr. Kimura's poem. This last week I came to Pender with 2 women friends, and while they were here I showed them the poem. We were all deeply touched by it. It expresses a truth we all feel is basic to live by, and it created the opportunity for reflection, contemplation, and conversation, something old ladies are good at, or these old ladies are. I entered a Google search for Mr. Kimura on my phone and was sad to learn he passed away this spring. My friends and I think that his poem Cargo may be the gift he brought to the world. It is for us anyway, and we love it that it came to us in a bottle out of the sea. I don't know who put the poem in the bottle or where it was launched. I suspect, since the paper was completely dry on which the poem is written, that it may have come from a bay around the corner. She goes on and on. That's it. It's just an amazing story. Finally, to show the effect that poetry has on some people, not usually in this country, but we're all working on it. Pablo Neruda, the great activist and poet, near the end of his career was giving a reading to a huge sold-out audience in Venezuela. And after he finished reading his poems, he said, "This has been such a gracious audience, I'll take requests." And somebody said, "Would you do poem number 19 of 20 poems and 20 love poems and a song of despair?" And Neruda said, "I'm sorry to say that I don't have that book with me tonight." And at that point, 400 people in the audience stood up and recited the poem by memory.
Wow.
And that's what poetry can do. That's how poetry could change our lives, and poetry could change more than that. So, we have two young ladies that are going to start off our program. The first is our 2018 Ohio Poetry Out Loud champion, and she'll be going to Washington, D.C. Is it next week? Or 2 weeks? 2 weeks to compete against the winners of all the other states. And Ohio's done really well in the past, having people in the top 10. And I would like to invite Caroline Delaney from Dayton. She and her father/chauffeur drove across the state this evening for her to practice. I promised her it was a receptive, kind audience, and I know you are. And Caroline, would you come up and do your poems?
Usually they ask me to orient the mic, but I don't think the mic's working, so I won't do that.
Oh, it's working.
Oh, it's working? Oh. All right, this is why I'm not here alone. The American Soldier by Philip Freneau. A picture from the life, to serve with love and shed your blood, approved may be above, but here below example show. 'Tis dangerous to be good. Lord Oxford. Deep in a vale, a stranger now to arms, too poor to shine in courts, too proud to beg. He who once warred on Saratoga's plains sits musing o'er his scars and wooden leg, remembering still the toil of former days. To other hands he sees his earnings paid. They share the due reward. He feeds on praise, lost in the abyss of want, misfortune's shade. Far, far from domes where splendid tapers glare, 'tis his from dear-bought peace no wealth to win. Removed alike from courtly cringing squires, the great man's levy and the proud man's grin. Sold are those arms which once on Britons blazed, when, flushed with conquest, to the charge they came. That power repelled and freedom's fabric raised. She leaves her soldier, famine and a name. To do 2 poems, so I guess I'm going to have to do that as well. All right. So, here's my second one. Planetarium by Adrian Rich. Thinking of Caroline Herschel, 1750 to 1848. Astronomer, sister of William, and others. A woman in the shape of a monster in the shape of a woman. The skies are full of them. A woman in the snow among the clocks and instruments, or measuring the ground with poles. In her 98 years to discover 8 comets. She whom the moon ruled, like us, levitating into the night sky, riding the polished lenses. Galaxies of women there doing penance for impetuousness. Ribs chilled in those spaces of the mind. And I, virile, precise, and absolutely certain, from the mad webs of Uranusborg, encountering the nova, every impulse of light exploding from the core as life flies out of us. Tycho whispering at last, let me not seem to have lived in vain. What we see, and seeing is changing. The light that shrivels a mountain and leaves a man alive. Heartbeat of the pulsar, heart sweating through my body, the radio impulse pouring in from Taurus. I am bombarded, yet I stand. I have been standing all my life in the direct path of a battery of signals, the most accurately transmitted, most untranslatable language in the universe. I am a galactic cloud so deep, so involuted, that a light wave could take 15 years to travel through me, and has taken. I am an instrument in the shape of a woman trying to translate pulsations into images for the relief of the body and the reconstruction of the mind.
When people do this. A couple of days ago, Jessica Kennedy, one of our Wellspring students from a couple of years ago, was it 2? 3? 2, asked if she could do a poem for us. And I said it would be great if you could do it on Friday. Here's the email I got back from her. This is your introduction. That would be absolutely amazing if I could snag a spot for Friday. You have no idea my heart needs to perform and be around people who understand why poetry is so important.
See, I don't even know if my poem will live up to the email now. So if you don't like the poem, just enjoy the email, I guess. Say. And this is also a slam style poem, so a little bit different than most readings that you'll probably encounter tonight. Perpetual sadness is a flesh-eating disease, brain-eating disease, a muscle-eating disease. It gnawed through every good relationship that I ever had, chased away all the people who still gave me a chance in their lives, even though all I had to offer was bones. Perpetual sadness is happy in the way it gets you all alone. Has a grin on its face for every night you spend writing in a notebook, trying to connect with the pen that has hollowed a space in your fingers. Every single tooth mocking the fact that even a pen with its own space chiseled into your bone will not feel close to you. You tell the pen that it's your best friend to make the pen feel better about the Grand Canyon between the two of you. Once you realize you're talking to a pen, you start typing on your phone because it's less personal. The screen has a better poker face. It does not bother carving a space in your bones because phone is come and go, friend. Phone is tough love. Phone is fast response to questions you never wanted answers to. Phone is stay away from me because I am phone. I am almighty. I am everything you're afraid of. Phone feeds perpetual sadness. They get coffee on the weekends to discuss what I can't handle this week and amplify results because bones are bad guys. No cover up, no poker face. Bones are present and phone tears down. Phone sends no text back when you need the response. Phone shows you all the friends you had. All of the fun you had. Phone shows you a high-quality picture of the dent that is still left in your finger from pen. Perpetual sadness lurks in bone marrow, stays with bone even when burned at death. Now has a grin on its face because you really thought you could get away. Perpetual sadness is feeling that never leaves, is true best friend, is only feeling you can count on every day, tells you never to risk investment and feeling of someone next to you because if they leave. Perpetual sadness tells you bones will rot away too. You wish they would. Wish you would be free like air, like lightweight, like flowing, like happy. Like wind blowing through your hair, window down, skin was still there, and you were smiling. Thank you. Like I said, the email will be just fine.
Our first of our featured poets tonight is Eleanor Wilner. Dave Lee, our great friend from many of these poetry festivals, has been telling me how great Eleanor is for years. And if you know Dave, you know that he kind of exaggerates sometimes, sometimes doesn't even tell the truth. It could get a laugh or be a good story. But he was so right on with Eleanor. Evie and I are going to adopt her and not let her go home. She's wonderful. She's brilliant. She's warm. A lot of the things that we take for granted now are here because of the fighting she did for the rights of women, the rights of everyone. The fight against war and nuclear proliferation. She's just one of the most amazing persons I've ever met. Is that a good enough introduction? Eleanor Wilner.
It's always so depressing after an introduction like that when I'm the person that has to come up there. Takes a lot of water to get an old horse going, so. Thank you, Alan and Evie, for being such gracious hosts, for the privilege of hanging out and talking poetry with you and with Frank Escamilla. And thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm going to read a poem about spring. We've been waiting a long time. Actually, even though this is, if all this doesn't fall down, let's see how it goes. poets are supposed to write about spring. Actually, the reason I wrote this poem was because I got a phone call one day from a friend, and she said, I have a feeling everything is ending. So please tell me everything is starting. This is the kind of phone calls I regularly get. So this poem, you won't be surprised to hear, is called Everything is Starting. That gets us to spring. I should tell you, as we move out from Center City, Philadelphia, where I live, all the way out to, in time and scale, to the birth of the universe, I should tell you that when I mention the red edge of creation, that refers to the fact that the farther out you look in space, the further back in time you're looking, which I'm sure you know. And at the very outer edge of our expanding universe, our instruments see the radiation from the Big Bang. That light is shifted toward the red frequency because of the speed at which it's moving away. There's also in this poem an updated reference to Dante's Paradiso in the farthest ninth heaven, the circle of heaven, where God is. His image for this is of a huge rose made entirely of light, out of which the blessed souls are flying in and out like bees. Everything is starting. The snow is filthy now. It has been drinking oil and soot and car exhaust for days, and dogs have marked it with their special brand of brilliant yellow piss. For a week after it fell, the snow stood in frozen horror at the icy chill and hardened at the top. And then today, the thaw. Now everything is starting up again. The traffic flows, the place where dogs pause and sniff becomes once more invisible to us. And in the gutters of our streets, a minor Nile floods from the old drifts into the gasping drains. Even the sewers are jubilant in the rush that foretells spring. The rats dance along the pipes. On all the trees, the buds push against the sealed bark as if against the tight containment of the past. While deep in the Florida Keys, along some slow canal, the manatees roll heavily in the dark stream, the way that sleepers slowly turn and dream. And the cranes look up, unrolling their long necks, possessed by restlessness just before they fly. Light years away, beyond the veils of the Milky Way, out at the red edge of creation, where everything is always starting. There, a memory shifts and gathers itself once more, a memory of the time, if time it can be called, when all that is the matter, or all that matter is drawn into one place, as if into a single thought, and unimaginable ignites, shattering the ageless night in which the cosmos only dreamed. And in the oldest memory, of which I think we have a share, it was an endlessly unfolding flower of fire, the rose of light that Dante saw its after-image in the soul. And from that flower, the seeds of all the galaxies were sown. Now, in our own, the snow recedes. The buds will shatter the end of every twig as everything is starting up again. The crocus pokes its purple furled above the thawing ground. And when the local ember of that first fiery bloom, our sun, touches its silk with light, it will unfurl in perfect silence, unlike us, who never were the point, but still delight in being the sole narrators, upstarts of the dawn. So now we move from nature to nation, and the bummer lit starts. We don't choose what we write, you know. The history we live in lives in us. So it goes. This is a new poem. This one, well, it's not so new now. You know that line from Macbeth, fair is foul and foul is fair. Those words opened Macbeth, the play about the bewitching temptations of illicit power and its easy slide on blood and paranoia into tyranny. And I recall a conversation late in the play when the good man Macduff asks, "Stands Scotland where it did?" To which his compatriot Ross answers, "Alas, poor country, almost afraid to know itself." This poem was written shortly after the shock of election night, and it registers that shock. Parable of the Eyes. Somewhere in America on the plains is a silo full of eyes. They are closed, shut tight, though now and then a few tears run and a rivulet of salty water shudders the piles in the murk of those great bins. Like storage lockers, people put things in they can't remember why they bought. Once valued things that got in the way as they moved from here to there, from there to here, where the bells where the bells toll day and night. Deep runs the sound, its slow decay goes on, and the eyeless try to drown the sound, sit down to the TV news, when the knock of the fist comes on the door, and you can hear the grinding of gears as the trucks pull up outside, and the eyes locked in the heartland silos suddenly blink and open wide, and all they see are other eyes in all that darkness staring back. Hold the applause, but thank you for it. I appreciate it. I loved your poem.